Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Somebody.
Okay, whoa, that's really loud, sorry.
I'm honored.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. My name is Ashley Heidebrecht. I run the Facebook page called The Radical Social Worker, and I've been working with lots of local folks, some people from around the country, and we formed a coalition called Shut Tornillo Down Coalition, and our purpose is to shut this facility down, to get these children placed with their families, with their sponsors, and make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. So I want to thank you all for coming. By being here, you know, you've demonstrated commitment to something that is bigger than yourself, bigger than anything that keeps us apart. This unites us together as one purpose. So I want to share with you briefly before I turn over the lovely bullhorn to our incoming Congresswoman, Veronica Escobar. Thanks so much for being here. I want to share with you our mission, what we're trying to do. We're trying to get Congress on board with us. And as we see today with Veronica being present with us, with the delegation that's gone inside to tour the facility, and they'll be joining us after they're finished with their tour. We see that support is already happening, and we are so grateful for that, but we need more. We need every member of Congress that can find within their hearts the truth that what's happening here is wrong. We need their support. So here is what we are demanding. Shut Tornillo down. Release every child in Tornillo to a family member, sponsor, or licensed child welfare placement as expeditiously as possible as required by federal law. Stop using children as bait to identify undocumented residents of our country. Terminate the policy that requires ICE to fingerprint all sponsors and their household members and allows ICE to use that information for enforcement purposes. Do not use Tornillo or the Tornillo model for detainees of any age. It is excessive and cruel, cost prohibitive, and contrary to the values of our immigration law. Assure that all child detainees receive educational, health, and psychological services in keeping with all rights accorded under the Flores settlement. We ask that these actions be taken as swiftly as possible for the well-being of the children in custody and to prevent expansion of these harmful practices and policies. So that is what we are asking, that is what we are demanding, and that is what we are hoping, and we are confident that Congress will meet these demands and work with us to shut Tornillo down. So with that, I will turn it over to Veronica Escobar.
Buenos dias. How are you all? Good morning. Ashley, thank you so much for bringing us together and for making sure that the rest of the country doesn't forget what is happening behind this wall. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, each and every one of you for keeping the message going, because we know only too well in our country we are very quick to forget things that happen. It's all about the 24-hour news cycle. It's all about the next piece of information. It's all about the next scandal coming from the White House. And unfortunately, that's no longer a daily scandal, that's an hourly scandal. And while we have to pay attention to all of that, we cannot forget the children that are being held in U.S. government prisons for having the audacity to seek refuge in the arms of America. You know, for those of you who are new to El Paso, especially the members of the media, I want you to take note of what a warm, welcoming community we are.
Yes.
I want you to take note of what a generous, kind, compassionate community we are. Because too often, the message that is spread about the border is absolutely contrary to the truth. And the truth is what you see in front of you. The truth is each one of these faces The truth is in those signs that are hanging on that fence. El Paso is a community that welcomes people with open arms. El Paso is a community that takes care of one another. And that is representative of the border. The border has never been safer. The border has never been more secure. And yet, we still have government policies that treat the border as something to be feared, as a place to be controlled, as a problem to be solved. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I will tell you, my friends, it's taken us a long time to get to this moral rock bottom. And unfortunately, it feels like just when we have hit rock bottom, we can't sink any lower, but we sure do. We sink lower. But it's been decades of people talking about the border and immigrants in a way that dehumanizes us. And so when we look at ourselves in the mirror as a country, it's not just one president that has brought us here. It's not just one man that has brought us here. It's not just one party that has brought us here. We have to stop the conversation about securing the border, and we need to start saying that the border is secure. It is that rhetoric that gives politicians an excuse to treat communities and people with cruelty. And the very tragic death of a 7-year-old girl, one in many, many lines of deaths, unfortunately, of border crossers, people fleeing violence and persecution and poverty. They are being pushed out to far more treacherous areas along the U.S.-Mexico border. And why is that happening? Yet again, we need to look at our government. It is happening because we have policies coming from the White House intended to prevent people from legally seeking asylum in our country. Legally seeking asylum. I don't know if members of the media and members of our community have witnessed firsthand, I have, CBP agents at the top of our ports of entry physically preventing asylum seekers from stepping foot on American soil. That's not just contrary to our values, that is contrary to our laws. That is contrary to who we are and what we are as a nation. And it's folks like you who are going to keep reminding us day in and day out, keep this in the news day in and day out until we achieve everything that Ashley laid out in her list. We have to shut this place down. Yes. We have to shut this place down. We have to reunite children with their sponsors and their families. That is the right and just thing to do. We have to look at our role in Central America and what we as a country have done to create conditions that are driving people from their home. I have spoken with some of these refugees. They don't want to leave their home. They don't want to leave their neighborhood. They don't want to leave their family. They don't want to leave their language and go to a place where they know they're not wanted by this president and by many Americans. But they have no other choice. They have no other choice. And so I'm going to be working with members of Congress to solve these challenges that we have in Central America. That's a long-term solution. And in the short term, we have to follow our laws. We have to follow our laws and allow asylum seekers entry. We need to provide resources at the ports of entry and at the crossings to ensure that people are treated humanely, to ensure that families are kept together, and to make sure that we don't live in shame about the way that we treat humans at their most vulnerable points in their lives. So thank you all very much for keeping the message alive, for keeping the pressure on, for keeping Congress accountable. I am with you. I am with you. Gracias. Thank you.
Veronica here, is it on?
Can you push the red button? You gotta hold it.
There you go. Veronica Veronica used to teach English at El Paso Community College, and I was teaching American government there. So we have been colleagues before. We're so proud of her getting elected to the U.S. Congress. I'm going to ask her to grade this paper after I finish it. When I was here in June, when they had the first demonstration here about the separation of parents and children, when I got home and my wife asked me to write something she could put on Facebook. So on June the 23rd,
I can run up
Shanna
and get
Blevins
closer
put
if you
this on
want.
her Facebook page. I call it Uncle Sam's Lament, and it's not real long. I am Leon Blevins of El Paso, Texas. Since the early 1970s, I've portrayed Uncle Sam while entertaining children, seniors, veterans, and active military. For 53 years, I taught American government and politics and specialized in writing about civil rights and civil liberties. I am saddened by a president who uses his powerful office to destroy or weaken basic American constitutional principles. As a born-again Christian and a patriotic American, I am a very sad Uncle Sam. My president shames our nation with disruptive and impulsive actions, with vulgar and demeaning language, with inappropriate actions toward women, Muslims, the disabled, and groups of people with black or brown skin. I am bothered by a president who uses traditional fascist tactics, such as propaganda, to achieve and use power. I am deeply saddened that I have shed tears over a presidential policy that forcibly takes children away from immigrant parents seeking asylum from terror. Such an action without due process is akin to kidnapping. I am saddened by the fact that some government workers have taken the immigrants' few belongings for their own personal use or disposal in the garbage. Action like that took place in Nazi Germany against the Jews.
Yes,
I think the term for that is theft. Just because immigrants come into the U.S. illegally or seeking asylum does not mean that they should be stripped of possessions and dignity. Along with the Statue of Liberty, I weep for our nation. I weep because some of my friends and family attribute to me and my wife Shanna attributes of evil that we know we do not possess. For example, we have never supported the killing of babies. We both believe in and follow as best we can the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We pray for our president and hope that he can become a positive force for good in the world. Right now he calls himself a Christian, but he does not act like one. He acts like a cult leader. Beware of false prophets.
That's right.
Shanna and I no longer call ourselves evangelical Christians. We're simply Christians. I wrote a published article in June of 2015 that explains my feelings. It can be found on the internet as An Evangelical's Lament. I recall that the Bible teaches that Jesus wept as he looked down from the cross at the religious and political leaders that killed him. May God have mercy upon us all. And that's on Shanna Blevins' Facebook, June 23rd, 2018. Thank you for being here today, supporting the cause.
I can hold this if you want.
Good morning, everybody. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Camilo Pérez Bustillo. I'm here representing Hope Border Institute, el Instituto Fronterizo Esperanza. We're deeply grounded in the Mexican communities on both sides of the border, deeply grounded in a perspective based on faith that looks at the defense of human rights in this region as an act of conscience and as an act of resistance. And that's why we're here. We're here to support the effort to shut down Tornillo because Tornillo is emblematic of and embodies an architecture of cruelty, a system that is designed to induce suffering, the deprivation of rights, and that promotes death. I want us to start with remembering, with having with us the spirit of Jacqueline Amé Rosemary Cal Maquin, the 7-year-old Guatemalan indigenous girl who died in CBP custody, whose case embodies today the kind of challenges we face.
Jacqueline Presente.
Can we have 30 seconds of silence in her memory first? Jacqueline's suffering, her sacrifice, and the suffering and sacrifice of her family and her community and of indigenous peoples throughout Latin America who are exercising their right to migrate through the current Central American migrant exodus are, for us, the point of reference and the point of departure. It is those same children and those same families and that same suffering that is present in Tornillo. I was with those children a month ago as part of the Flores inspection team, fighting to try and get Tornillo within the framework of Flores. And the voices that I heard from those children were the voices of Jacqueline. That is why we must stop now. No more death, no more suffering. We must fight for the justice that Tornillo reflects the absence of. We are honored to have the presence of incoming Representative Escobar, but we have to say that up until now, it has been the failure of Congress to do what it needs to do in terms of serious oversight, and it has been our collective failure to mobilize enough to shut Tornillo down. All of us here can turn that around. All of us here can make sure that the exceptional regime of cruelty that Tornillo represents can be stopped and be prevented from becoming the model that they want to turn it into. Let's remember the words of President Trump on the eve of the most recent elections, when he said, as he introduced his presidential proclamation to further restrict the rights of asylum that Representative Escobar has highlighted, it was he who said that what we needed was tent cities, like Tornillo, for the purposes of mass detention. That's what Tornillo stands for. That's why it needs to be shut down. That's why it needs to be rolled back. That's why those children need to be free. And we will not rest at Hope Border Institute and in this region, on both sides of the border, throughout this country, throughout the world, until that happens. Thank you.
I'm going to untangle this a little bit for you really quick.
Thank you. Hold down the red button.
Yep, just hold down the red button.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Zeb Green. I'm a representative of Sacred Mischief Ministries, which is an interfaith coalition and collective. It's informal, but we stand to believe that faith demands compassion, it demands change, and in the face of such injustice, it demands us to be subversive. Now, I know people are often afraid when they hear faith leaders talk. They're afraid we're going to hear platitudes, or worse, they're going to look at something like Baptist Child and Family Services, which keep children in tent prisons. That is what represents faith in this country, and that is despicable to me. I am here to say that people of faith have compassion. And when I talk of religion, I'm not talking about creeds or religious institutions. I'm talking about a feeling inside of each person. A feeling of compassion, a feeling of connection, a feeling that there is something bigger and better in this world, and that's worth fighting for. This is open to you regardless of what background you come from, regardless if you identify as religious or not. There is a feeling inside of you that you can tap into. A feeling of love and a feeling of power, and sometimes, unfortunately, right now, a feeling of despair. One cannot be loving right now and not feel despair, to not be overwhelmed by hopelessness. When we look at the border, when we look at this camp, when we look at what's happening to the exodus coming north and being met in San Diego and Tijuana by tear gas. I had the privilege recently of being at the San Diego border on Monday when faith leaders across the country 400 faith leaders came to gather and walked down to that border wall, and they were going to make a circle, a half circle on our side and a half circle with clergy on the other side, to pray and to bless and demand that we make the border a place of love again, a place that is fluid so families can see one another. And when these faith leaders gathered, they were met by militarized police, by Border Patrol that arrested them, arrested over 30 faith leaders that day, and they were charged with non-compliance. In our country right now, praying for compassion is non-compliant to the law.
That's right.
That is unacceptable, but why are the rest of us not being non-compliant as well? Why do we not eat, sleep, breathe, and pray non-compliance to this system that locks up children?
Right.
This system that tear gasses children? Why are we all not non-compliant? So please carry that with you. I have recently put my career on hold this Advent season, left my internship temporarily to be here today, to be active through this month of Advent. Because this is the Christian season of Advent, which is a season of preparing and welcoming the Spirit of God and the Spirit of the divine in all. And how do we practice Advent? Do we practice it by locking up children? Is that how we welcome the spirit of these children coming to the United States? By locking them up? No. We fight, we stand, we resist, we tell the world that we are loving, and we will continue to be here and to continue to practice that season of Advent. That season of welcoming radically in all our streets and everywhere we can be. I ask you to join us later this month for Christmas in Tornillo as we celebrate the divine spark in each of these children, to celebrate the love that they are bringing, the strength and the fortitude they had to come to this country to face unimaginable challenges to get here and to only be met with hate. We can't have that. That is not welcoming. No. So right now, I ask all of you to think, to pray, to hold in your hearts how to let that compassion in and how you can act. I'd like to invite us into a moment of silence. And in this silence, pray or meditate however you hold. Hold the children who have died on this journey. Hold the children in these camps. Hold all of the people in your heart. And yes, it's hard. Yes, that leads you to despair. But only in that grounded despair, only in that hopelessness can we see the world that we have, the world that we have built. And we can envision something better. We can look at the world and say, we can do something. So ask yourself, what can you do? How can you hold these people and show this love in your heart? Please join me in silence and hold them in the light. Thank you. Josh, I believe you will lead us in song.
Israel was in Egypt's land. Let my people go. Pressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Across the road and over the fence. Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell Lord Pharaoh, let my people go. We stand outside the prison walls. Let my people go. We'll stand until this prison falls. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Hello, Pharaoh, let my people go. I got a book with pages 3. Let my people go. And every page spells liberty. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. And tell old Pharaoh, let my people go.
I'd like to invite Josh Rubin to say a few words about what he's been doing here at Tornillo. For those of you who maybe don't know, he started a campaign called Witness Tornillo, and it's really kind of taken off on Facebook, so I'd like to give him the opportunity to share his thoughts and what the purpose is behind what he's been doing.
Go, Josh. Hi, everyone. My name's Josh Rubin. I came from Brooklyn, New York a couple of months ago, thinking that I would plunk myself down in front of this place and watch what goes on, report on what goes on, and with any luck, bring some attention to the place. Maybe that's starting to happen. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. It's a strange experience living here on the desert, kind of outside the tent city. I get to see what they have to do to keep this place going. They bring in water from the outside. There's no water inside. They run generators because they don't want to connect to the electric wires. And they spend most of their time making sure that the kids inside can't see anything outside and that we can't see them. But we do see them. I see them. I see them walking in single file from tent to tent. I see them accompanied to every bathroom experience that they have. I think about this place a lot because I have a lot of time here, watching the traffic flow in and out. I think about what might be happening when I hear ambulances leave in the middle of the night. I think about what they're doing here and how they got here. They get here this way. First, we call them criminals, and they're dangerous. They're teenagers. They're a threat to us. So we confine them. So we put them inside, and then we decide they're really vulnerable. So we have to protect them. We have to protect them from the families they came to see. So we're going to keep them inside and protect the hell out of them. We're going to protect them so much that they're going to be in there for 6 or 7 months, some of them. We got to protect them from their families. So imagine this. I walk into a Walmart, right? And I grab a kid, a teenager, by the arm, and I pull him away from his family. And I turn to his family and I say, prove to me that you're not going to abuse this kid before I give him back. I don't think that would be tolerated. And I got to say, there's a reason that wouldn't be tolerated, and this is tolerated, and it's called racism. That's the reason. Yes. Our assumption in this country is that these brown families that these kids are going to go to are more of a danger to them than being imprisoned in tents in the desert for long periods of time, doing them damage that they may never recover from. It's racism. That's what I've learned standing outside here. Thank you.
So, oops, I have it turned backwards. Having connection issues. There we go. Okay. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful gathering that we have here. And anyone who wants to share their thoughts, if you have been directly impacted by our immigration policies, your voice is the most important voice, and we want to hear from you. So if you would like to speak, to share your thoughts, please come forward and take this bullhorn from me because my arm is tired, and share your thoughts about Tornillo, about our unjust immigration system, about family separation, wherever your heart is being called to right now. Please come forward. I know there has to be somebody. Great. Hi.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Hi, my name's Oprah Lizer Whalen. I'm not a native El Pasoan. I've been here for 7 years, and I love how welcoming and warm this community is. And I know that we are not about locking people up, and it gives me so much hope that people are concerned about it. And I feel this on a really incredibly personal level. So 3 of my 4 grandparents are Holocaust survivors. Their families didn't make it. I grew up listening to their stories of their lost brothers and sisters and parents, and it just disgusts me, like Veronica said, that we don't learn from history. And I think about who wasn't there at that time, and I think about how we have to be here at this time. And I don't mean to make direct comparisons, with the Holocaust, but there are some comparisons to be made.
Of course.
Detention is the same. Suffering is the same. Some people are dying. And I think we need to remember not only the Holocaust, but genocide across the world, detention across the world, historically and today, and to remind people that we don't want to repeat history. We know what happened. We know what side we want to be on. I know the president has appointed people who tend not to think the same way. But we need our voices to be louder, and we need our love to be stronger. And so I know sometimes it seems like I've been here time and time again with the seasons changing, but I also want us to remember that the ultimate, as far as the Holocaust, it took a long time, but ultimately the right side prevailed. And so for me, it's about endurance. And I hope that we all remember that.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There has to be. Oh, awesome. Great. I was just about to yell.
Hello everyone, my name is Sandra Paola Lopez Ramirez. I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I've been in the U.S. for almost 15 years. I became naturalized citizen 2 years ago. Been in El Paso for 4.5 years. This is the first place that has felt remotely like a home to me in the U.S. I lived in the Midwest for the first 10 years. Had my first experiences of racism there. And something that I just wanted to share a little bit in response to what was said about racism and this being about racism is that it's also about class. and economic privilege and educational privilege. Yeah. I've had the fortune to come here to study. That's why I came to the States to go to school. I had the privilege to have parents that could pay for some of my college, to have this opportunity. And as I've become more and more involved working with marginalized communities, I do also a lot of work in Ciudad Juarez, I realize of how classist our society and our system is, and how differently we treat immigrants that come here with privilege like I have, and immigrants that come here with nothing. And so I think for me, as I look at my privilege and as I look at what is my responsibility, I want to invite you for us to think about what is our collective responsibility to continue to change the system and to continue to change and subvert the systems of power that give those of us who have been born in privilege more possibilities and more rights and just the possibility to live a life, a dignified life, and that is stripped, or not even stripped, but just not given to people that are not born with any of the privileges that at least I have been blessed with. So I just wanted to invite us to also think about the intersectionality of this issue. That these kids here in Tornillo are not kids that are from families that have that privilege, but are coming from families that have no financial privilege, no economic privilege. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Marissa Elise Sanchez and I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I want to thank everyone for being here today. It means a lot to see that there's so many people that are willing to come out and stand with the children, especially in light of what's happened with Jacqueline. The proof that this violence that's being experienced here at the border. And I want to build off what the last speaker said and thank her for bringing up that this is an issue of class, that it's poor children that are being detained, that it's U.S. imperialism and imperialist violence that's being fleed in Honduras, as we see with the caravanistas and those who are being forced to flee from their homes. And I think it's important that we point out that in this capitalist system, they're fine with open borders for businesses and for money, but not for people.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And that's why, the We Are the Wall is so appropriate, because we are calling for an end to that border policy, because we know that on both sides of the border, we are being oppressed by capitalism.
Yes.
That on both sides of the border, we are dealing with racism. We see it in the continuation of police brutality, every year here in the U.S. We are dealing with low wages. We're dealing with poor working conditions. And all of that is happening on both sides of the border. And we understand that the border is a construction, but that truly the working class struggle has no border.
You're here.
Yes. Tomorrow, thank you. I want to announce that tomorrow at 12 noon in San Jacinto Plaza in El Paso, where Jacqueline passed away, we will be holding vigil for her. I think most of you have a flyer at this point, but we want to invite everyone to come there and speak to hold vigil for Jacqueline. There will also be a study group tomorrow evening in El Paso at 4 o'clock to study the root causes of this issue and U.S. imperialism. So we invite everyone to join us there for study as well. And thank you again for being here. If it's all right, maybe we can chant together. Up, up, up with the people.
Up with the people.
Down, down, down with ICE.
Down, down, down with ICE.
Up, up, up with immigrants.
Up with immigrants.
Down, down, down with Trump.
Down, down, down with Trump.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alejandra Muñiz Arnal. I am a native here of El Paso, born and raised. I am the daughter of immigrants who came here for a better life and out of complete necessity. I've also
I'm currently in Pennsylvania, so I've been doing a lot of advocacy work within immigrant organizations and within the detention centers there in Pennsylvania, and we see that this is a national problem, that this is being spread throughout our entire country. Yes. And ultimately, this is a responsibility of the United States. 54 interventions within South and Central America from the United States happened to create this problem. Yes. These children are coming out of complete and pure necessity, and as a child of immigrants who has known what that fear is like, for a child that is indescribable. And the kind of trauma that a child suffers from separation from their parents, from that fear, is irreversible. So it is hugely important for us not only to keep our attention on this, to not allow ourselves to forget about these children just because, like they said before, they are not necessarily in our line of vision, but also to continue to work in the most creative ways possible through rallies, through political means, to make sure that these children are, and these families are united, because they do not deserve this. Because ultimately, we are a country of immigrants. We are a country that is made and born out of our differences and out of what makes us unique. And it is a system built on racism and on preferentialness for certain groups and not for others. So I think we need to focus on compassion and really looking at the causes of it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Jasmine Venegas. I am a proud El Pasoan, a proud Texan, a proud second generation Mexican American, and a proud citizen of the world. And I am very happy to be here today. It's my first time. I wanted to witness it for myself, and I recently started work at a migrant shelter put together by the Annunciation House, an organization that I invite you to look into and volunteer your time if you have a spare day or so in your week. Again, I started volunteering there because I wanted to see that situation for myself instead of just reading through the news, from the news and from hearsay of what was going on. And what we do at the shelter is we do intake for migrants who have been released from detention at ICE centers. And they get dropped off by the busload with no resources, no food, just a backpack on their backs and the clothes on their back. And we welcome them, and we take them in, and we provide shelter and food, and we contact their sponsors, and we send them on their way to be reunited with them, and then go on to their court dates and so on. Sometimes we get so flooded with people that we don't really have time to listen to their stories, but in those rare, precious moments that we do, we really understand, and we can see and hear the struggle and the heartbreak that these people are experiencing. One experience I had as I did intake for this woman from Guatemala and her family. She had 2 kids with her, and during intake we take their documents. They're stripped from their visas and any documentation they bring from their foreign country, and they are given these papers with a picture and their name and their date of birth, and that serves as their visa here in the United States. And we take those and we write down the information, and we write down the information of their sponsors, which is family members or friends here in the U.S. who will receive them. And as I was taking down this woman's name, her date of birth, her age, her country of origin, and her kids, she tells me that she was traveling with her 17-year-old son, who was not with her. I asked, are you guys the only ones traveling together, just 3 of you? And she said, actually, it was 4. But I got separated from my son because he was of adult legal age to be tried separately from me. And I have no way of getting in touch with him. Do you have a way of getting in touch with my son? And I had to say, I don't. I'm sorry. And she just broke down into tears. And it was the most heartbreaking thing you could ever experience. And so I think it is very important that we are here witnessing this. I think we need to call on all of our family and friends and anybody we can possibly reach to come and witness this. And I also invite you, like I said, to look into volunteering. There is a lot of work to be done. We need a lot of hands on deck. And we can't turn a blind eye. It can't be out of sight, out of mind. We have to see what's going on for ourselves and be involved, because this affects all of us as human beings living and inhabiting this planet that we call Earth. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corin Ferdrian, and
Hear you very well. Put it right on.
is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. My name is Corin Ferdrian, and I am a disabled Army veteran of 10 years. I want to talk about something that we haven't really talked about. We talk a lot about the children. I want to talk about the guards. I deployed in 2008 to Iraq to work as a guard and transportation operator in the Camp Taji Theater Internment Facility. One of the things that we said every single morning was, don't do Abu Ghraib. If you don't remember what Abu Ghraib was, that was where there was sexual abuse of detainees in Iraq by U.S. troops. Those U.S. troops were not trained to handle detainees. They went through a 2-week course, and that was it. What I want to point out is that these guards, they're on the wrong side of history, but they will not emerge unscathed. No one emerges unscathed from being placed in a position to treat other human beings as not human. No one. These guards are going to come out realizing what they have been part of. It may take them years. These children will need therapy, but so will these guards. These guards are not trained for this. They're contractors. They're not trained to the same standards as U.S. military troops, whose job is prisons and detention. And even those military troops, I can't say everything that I know, because some of it is, military intel, but I did some things when I was there that caused physical harm to some of those detainees. Little things. Things that were funny at the time. Things to keep them under control. Some of my friends joked, and I laughed with them, about violating the rules that we had in place to hit those detainees when they were rioting. If my friends, if I can do little things like that, and I was only there 6 months, what is it going to do to these people? This type of detainment system is inherently abusive. It is inherently abusive because it turns people into guards and not people. And we have children in here? What have we come to as a nation? Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name's Adrienne Guerra. Oh, thank you. I'm Adrienne Guerra. I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here in El Paso almost 19 years. and I love El Paso. This is my home. I'm here with 3 of my 5 children, and 2 things I guess I want to say is, one, I can't imagine the desperation that a mother or a father would feel to leave their home and make the scary decision to bring their children to a place where they're hoping for it to be a better place. So it breaks my heart when I hear people blaming the parents, because as a parent myself, I know that was not an easy decision. And then to be taken away, my children taken away from me, my body's shaking just thinking about it. It's very painful. And to think about my children just not knowing where their mom or their dad was, I feel so much for these children. Secondly, I live in El Paso, as I said, and that's literally, 20-minute drive? And if it weren't for people like Ashley and Josh, I'm not even sure if I would have even known really that this was even happening here. So this is huge that we have to keep the awareness up and let people know about this. So thank you very much to all of you, and I hope that somehow we can make a difference and stop this. So thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to start calling names of people I know.
We all should say thank you.
Here we go. We got one.
All right. Come over here. Hi, my name is Jen Shields. I came to El Paso with my husband, who is on active duty in the military. We've done 3 tours now at Fort Bliss because we loved El Paso so much the first time. Closer. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone here. During our time in the military, we were stationed in Germany twice, and while we were there, had the chance to tour some of the concentration camps at Dachau and Auschwitz. And while we were there, the thing that we kept wondering, when you go to the concentration camps, it's actually not like this. They aren't out in the middle of nowhere. They're downtown. They're in these cute little towns in Germany and Poland. And there are houses all around. The houses have been there for hundreds of years. And so when you're in the concentration camps and seeing the buildings where people were burned, and seeing the structures where they were housed like cattle, Chris and I, my husband and I, kept wondering, didn't anybody notice? Where were the neighbors? We could see the neighbors' houses just outside, and they didn't notice. They didn't see the smoke rising up out of the camps. They didn't see the truckloads of women and children being brought in. And so when I found Witness Tornillo and saw what Mr. Rubin has been doing, it made me remember what it was like visiting now, touring now, Auschwitz and Dachau, and wondering, why weren't the neighbors watching? So thanks. Thanks for watching.
Come on, community. Nobody else. I don't want to talk for this long. Eli, you want to say something? See, if I call you by name, you have to come.
Eli is a local organizer as well.
My name is Eli Beller. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but moved here a little more than a year ago to work on human rights and border issues. This is really amazing to see this number of folks who really do care and really have, as people have said before, Tornillo in their hearts and on their minds. For Thanksgiving, I went back to LA, and even in El Paso, to sort of spread the word or just tell people about what is truly happening. People don't necessarily know. I know my family didn't know, and in LA. We all have a sense of what is going on, but to really have some impact beyond this sort of mile radius, it really, the word has to, the word must get out. It was mentioned earlier, I too am helping and assisting at an Annunciation House. Their efforts are vital, and really, we can never, Annunciation House, at this point, there are, I don't know, 5, 6, probably more houses that have sort of popped up. And I remember one anecdote. I was at this center, or this sort of temporary shelter, doing one of the intakes that was mentioned earlier, and I said to a mother, I said, how are you feeling? Meaning, are you sick? Do you have anything we can help with? She looked at me and she said, this was in Spanish, but she said, my heart hurts. And I sort of, at first, wow, that's not, okay, how long has your heart hurt? Thinking, okay, she's not great. To which she answered, well, when we left Central America, I had to leave my husband, my father, one of my sons behind. So that moment is just one example of the sort of heart-wrenching yet really amazing, in the sense that these individuals are willing and are going on, and that sense of being there and knowing that they will reach their family. So again, I come back to all of you here to just thank, well, Ashley for putting this on, and Josh and Camilo, of course, and to really keep up this momentum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Annunciation House needs not only your time, they need money,
Yeah.
toiletries, clothing, and food.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anyone else in the crowd who would like to say something? Awesome.
Can you master this on your own, or do you want me to hold it? All right.
All right, how you doing? Thanks for everybody coming out here. I don't get it. My name's David Burnett. I've been here since '62. I'm an Army brat. I've been all over the world with my parents. I'm a proud Texan. I'm one of those that volunteer at the Annunciation House.
It's very weird.
The fear that I see when those people come off the buses, and within days, the warmth from all the volunteers and what we do for them, give them shelter. I've repaired beds, I've hung curtains, I've feed them, stand in the line, handing them clothes that have been donated, and within days, before we send them off, and I'm one of those that drive them to the airport and to the bus station, and the warmth and the gratitude, it's humbling. What's happening over here is injustice. We've got to stop it. These are people. These are human beings. And I want to thank everybody for being here, but if you have time, we need volunteers. We've got to help these people. We're reuniting them with their families that are already here legally, that are sending money to send for the buses and the planes. And again, the fear, they see the warmth and the care that we give them. Within days, they see hope, and that's what we're giving them is hope. Everybody being here, they don't know that we're here. They're locked up in those tents, but I think God has given them hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I won't call anyone else by name, I promise. Okay, well, I'll say a few words, and hopefully they're almost finished with their tour inside, I'm hoping. I kind of want to drag this out, give the congressional delegation that's inside a chance to come out.
Some more music.
You're helping. Okay, awesome. Josh will help me drag it out, so that's super helpful. So, again, I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your family life, your Christmas shopping, your, whatever else, those things that we do that make us human. Thank you for coming here, because this is probably the most human thing that you can do.
Woo! Ashley!
Just to show support to people that you don't know, that you may never in your life meet. But these children that are being held here, they need us. They need us to be their voice on the outside of this camp, this prison. Without attention being drawn to it, it will continue. And as Camilo said, there is talk that this type of prison, this type of detention is to be the model of the future. And it's up to us to ensure that not only is Tornillo the exception and not the model, but that we prevent this from ever happening again. And that takes not only us gathering here as concerned human beings with our hearts open, but that takes literally an act of Congress. And that's what we are requesting. That's what we are hoping will happen. And I passed around a little slip of paper for everyone. It's a call to action card. And on that card is resources that helps not only local places here, but also connects you with websites and with social media platforms that will provide you with up-to-date information. John Rubin spoke earlier about
Can you tell us what you're doing here? Why did you come here today?
Yeah, we're here to see really the details about what's going on with this child prison camp, Tornillo, that wasn't here a few months ago, and now it's here and it's being expanded. And this is a model of the Trump administration saying that it's a strategy to lock up children. And from what we're hearing, some of these children have been here for months now. This is unacceptable. It's a strategy of inflicting trauma on children as part of a political strategy, and that's simply not justifiable in any possible moral code or religious tradition.
Can you talk about maybe what do you think you might see here today?
We're going to see a lot of kids.
Only a few of them left.
So Mario in the jacket right there. Mario, raise your hand. He's going to direct us to where to be.
Who issued that memo? Sessions?
What? I'm not sure exactly who it was from. He said Sessions. Was it? He said Sessions, but I've talked to him.
Well, greetings everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. We're here with 5 members of Congress, 3 senators, 2 House members. We have Senator Hirono from Hawaii, Senator Smith, Senator Smith from Minnesota. We have Judy Chu, representative from Southern California. We have Beto O'Rourke, who you might possibly know, and myself, Jeff Merkley from Oregon. And we've come here in this congressional delegation to shine a light on this child prison here in the United States of America that now has 2,700 children locked up in it, ages 13 through 17. This is a part of the strategy by the Trump administration to inflict trauma on children as part of a political strategy. Let's understand that under no religious tradition, under no moral code, can you deliberately inflict trauma on children as part of a political strategy? But that's what's going on right now. First administration engaged in child separations. And that we shined a light on. It was unacceptable. The public responded, the courts responded, and that ended. Then the administration said, well,
God, I wish that
if
sign
we
would
can't
go away.
proceed with child separation, we will lock families up together and we will lock unaccompanied children up in facilities like this. This is just part of a series of child prisons across America. There are, as of this week, 15,000 children locked up in places like this, and the number continues to grow week by week. These children should be in homes, in schools, in playgrounds, in parks as they await their asylum hearings. That's treating people with respect and dignity. That's nurturing them instead of hurting them. But instead, we have this child prison. So we're here to shine a light on it and say it's unacceptable, and each member is going to have a few comments, and then we'll take questions. So we'll turn first to Senator Hirono.
Thank you. This facility was put up because of Trump's zero tolerance policy, which created immediately, basically, orphans. You know, these are young people who came here with their parents. They were separated, created instant homeless orphans. They had to create this facility, which was supposed to be only for 30 days, but beginning to look a lot more permanent. There are 800 kids here, we're told, that already have sponsors, but because of another very harmful memo that came out of the Trump administration that requires the sponsors to be fingerprinted and everybody in the sponsor's family to be fingerprinted, that is doing two things. One, it's creating tremendous delays in approving these sponsors to take these 800 kids who have these sponsors. The second thing is I think it has a chilling effect on sponsors coming forward because this information, and many of the sponsors are undocumented, is shared with ICE, and what ICE does is deport people. And so it's having a chilling effect. And I just want to say one more thing. You know, we wanted to talk with the young people here, and when I asked why we couldn't talk to them, I was told that we shouldn't interrupt their schedules. And I said,
shame.
There's probably a word for that. It's called BS. But I said, what if the kids knew that there are people here in our country who are very concerned about them and want to help them get to their families? What if they knew that and would they volunteer to speak to us? There's no answer to that, but I think we know why.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Chu from Pasadena, California.
Well, I am shocked and outraged by what I saw in there. There are 2,700 children, ages 13 to 17, who are in essence locked up there in a child prison and could be released had it not been for the change in Trump's policy, which says that the family members have to be fingerprinted. They never had to do that before. And because of that, these children are detained there indefinitely. In fact, the fact that this Tornillo center even exists is because the Trump administration is trying to get around the Flores Agreement, which says that you're not supposed to detain children for more than 20 days. Now they can be detained indefinitely, and there is not a plan to what to do with these children. This contract ends on December 31st. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, I think that we need to shut Tornillo down.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
It is inhumane. It is a child prison. It has no right to exist.
And let's shut it down. And just as part of that picture of those 2,700 children, we were told today 2,000 of them, more than 2,000 of them, are over the 20-day Flores limit for imprisoning children. That is why this is kept as a temporary facility to bypass Flores. It's unacceptable, and I echo that. Let's shut it down. Shut it down!
Free them now! Free them now!
Senator Smith of Minnesota.
Good morning, everyone. You know, in June of this year, this country and the whole world rose up in horror when we saw that America was ripping children from their parents at our borders. And yet today, just a few days before the Christmas holiday, we had 15,000 children in this facility here in Tornillo and around the country that are basically in child prisons. This is unacceptable for this great country. It is unacceptable in this great country that this is the way that we are treating children. And in there we saw 2,800 children. We know that the damage that they are experiencing, we can't even see on the outside because it is a lifelong trauma that they're going to be coping with their whole life. We are here today to shine a light on this and to draw not only the attention of those of you who are here, but people all over this country to speak out, use your voices to tell people, your elected representatives around this country, that this is unacceptable and that we will not tolerate it.
On June 17th, Father's Day, Beto O'Rourke was here to confront that this facility is unacceptable. He's back for his 4th trip, helping to shine the national light on this. We appreciate your support.
So I want to thank everyone who is here and everyone who's been here persistently and consistently since June to bear witness and to testify to our fellow Americans about what is being done in our name right now. I want to thank members of the press who are helping to ensure that everyone in this country understands the consequences of this policy. And I especially want to thank my colleagues who made the trip to come out here. There's no accident that this is in Tornillo. It takes 2 flights to fly into El Paso. It takes an hour drive from our city center to come out here. It's in a remote location on purpose so that the American people do not know what is happening here. 2,700 kids, some of whom we learned have been here since summer. We couldn't get a precise date from the contractor, and we're going to pursue this until we get the answer. Good. More than 500 girls are here. We got to see the dormitories in which they stay. Got to see where the boys are kept. As Senator Hirono said, when we attempted to speak to these children and ask them how they were doing, I was able to ask them the countries from which they came. I heard Guatemala and Honduras, asked them about the conditions. They kind of nodded their heads. It's okay, but what are they going to say when everyone around them is watching? But there was something in the look on their faces that we saw, the way that they weren't really engaged in the sports that they were playing out on those fields. No place is going to be right unless it is with their parents or their families. As Senator Merkley pointed out, this facility is open because this administration has decided that those family members who could sponsor these kids and have them in their homes right now and be taking care of them and help those kids be well and get back on their feet are going through onerous background checks, which have produced 170 apprehensions. 109 of those apprehensions had no criminal background whatsoever. So an uncle or an aunt, a grandmother or grandfather steps forward and says, I want to help this child out here at Tornillo, goes through an FBI background check that is then shared with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They are then picked up and deported back. That sends shockwaves through a community of immigrants all across this country. The director of BCFS said that he could have this place closed tomorrow if he would do away with the FBI background check that is shared with ICE right now. There are thousands of kids who are ready to go with sponsors that they have already identified. So the public pressure that you brought to bear after Father's Day that ended the practice of family separation, we need that same pressure again brought to bear in this administration to close down Tornillo. So thank you all for being here.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Madeline Mecklenburg from El Paso,
Texas. Shut it down. Shut it down.
The contractors told us that their contract expires at the end of this month. I've asked them, and I'll let the other members of Congress speak for themselves, I've asked them not to renew the contract unless ICE does away with the fingerprint background checks that are then used to deport people from mixed immigration status families. I won't speak for the contractor, but he's considering that. So all we know now is that contract closes at the end of the month unless both parties decide to renew it.
And one related part is that many of these kids have a sponsor who have already gone through the background checks, 1,300. And for some reason, in the bureaucracy of the Trump administration, they are slow walking those, I guess, completing that work, leaving these kids stranded here. So that, he said, could happen within 5 days. 1,300 kids could be placed with sponsors already identified and already checked out. It shows you the dark heart of the administration, that they are in every possible way trying to keep kids locked up. Yes, sir.
This is not the first time that the contract has expired and it got renewed. Is the federal government making them an offer they can't refuse?
Federal government has spent, this is all of us, right? U.S. taxpayers, from June to November, $144 million to keep this open. So this is a great deal for the contractor, a terrible deal for the kids who are trapped inside, and an awful deal for the U.S. taxpayer. And unless things change, I'm afraid that contract will be renewed, and we will spend hundreds of millions more. More than $300 million by this administration has already been authorized just for Tornillo. For a fraction of that, maybe zero, we could return those kids to their families.
And that number works out to just shy of $1 million a day for this one facility.
Right. I need to ask you about something.
Questions first.
Go ahead.
Congressman O'Rourke, if I could ask you, having visited the facility in Juarez, Mexico, and having visited the tent city in Tornillo, what do these places say about the way that America is treating migrant children?
So yesterday we were at Casa del Migrante in Ciudad Juarez, where people who try to lawfully petition for asylum in our ports of entry are turned away with a number and permanent marker written on their wrists, waiting days, uncertain about their future after having just survived a 2,000-mile journey. Those who are lucky enough to come into the United States, warehoused at a center here in Tornillo, and others all over the country. We're turning our backs, not just on these people, but on our best traditions. We're causing suffering. And in the case of Jacqueline, 7 years old, who we just learned this week died in custody of CBP, we're causing death. More than 200 migrants died in the last fiscal year trying to come in to this country. 7 of them, like Jacqueline, were children. That's us. That's the United States of America. It's not just Trump. It's not just the administration. It's not just the government. It's all of us until we make this right.
That's right. Let me make one thing really clear. This is all part of an anti-immigrant policy and attitude that this administration has, starting with a Muslim ban practically the day that he gets elected, inaugurated, calling certain countries asshole countries, calling Mexicans rapists, calling people from the Philippines animals. This is all part and parcel of a hugely anti-immigrant policy that is represented by this administration. And so it's not just a piece of this, a piece of that. It's all of a piece, and we have to stand up and push back against the kind of policy that do not reflect our values. And not to mention, when people come to our country seeking asylum, it is a law that requires us to accept them and to go through the process whereby they can make their asylum claims. But we're not doing that.
We'll come to another media question, but I promise this man he could get us.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say two things. One, I wanted to tell you about what happened a couple of weeks ago when I went around the back and was actually able to talk to some kids. Wow. I talked to some kids and I was able to say, you're not alone. No están solos. The next day, they put up black tarp because that's the thing that they don't want to have happen. They don't want those kids to know that there's somebody on the outside waiting for them. I'm glad you went in there. I'm glad they could see you. I know they could see your concern, but I want you to know what they're doing. And the other thing I wanted to say to you is, I spoke to you before. You know that I've been camped out here for 2 months. A few days ago, there were mobile paper shredders, document shredders from 2 different companies that went in there on site and shredded stuff. I want to know whether you could ask them about what they're shredding.
Well, thank you.
And by the way, we all consider it completely unacceptable that 5 members of Congress have come here to learn what's going on, and we were not able to talk to any of the 2,700 children inside there. I would particularly like for us to be able to meet with a group of the kids who have been here more than 2 months to understand the anxiety or the challenges or the pathways by which they're trapped here in this child prison. So as you publicize this, publicize that every member of Congress should be able to exercise oversight and have access and be able to talk with confidentiality and names and so forth but be able to find out what the hell is going on in these child prisons here in the United States of America.
Senator, was the visit just to that ops center? Was it just to that ops trailer, or did they let you walk
No, we
around?
went through the whole camp.
Okay.
Do you guys have an update on like what it actually looks like in there? Like how many tents and heaters and that kind of thing?
Let's turn
take
the
you
bed
around. I can take you around and show you in the back.
once, so we can't see the change.
It keeps expanding. The contractor himself said that this is no permanent place for kids. These are soft-sided tents that are meant for disaster recovery. These are the tents that are deployed after Hurricane Harvey. This isn't meant for kids to be living in day after day, week after week, and in some cases going on half a year for kids who have been stuck here. So having said that, given the fact that they're tents, the conditions were nice that we could see. We poked our head into probably 4 or 5 different tents, saw where the boys were sleeping, saw where the girls were seeing, saw the dining facility, saw the sports facility, saw the medical facility. So we know everyone in there. The contractors are we hope doing their best, but they could be staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and it wouldn't be right if they weren't with their families. And so that's what we need to focus on.
Can the executive order shut these camps down? And has any of you politicians, I'm sure you have, approached President Trump, given an executive order to shut them down?
We are exercising every form of pressure on the Trump administration we can, including, that's why we're here to talk to you all and to see this camp, see what's going on. This is a strategy crafted by the Trump administration to lock up now 15,000 kids. The number is growing, and this camp here is not at capacity. They've grown to 2,700, but I believe, was it 3,800? 3,800. They have built out capacity for 3,800, so another 1,100 kids might be arriving here.
But I think it's important to point out that, this could be closed at the swipe of a pen by the President of the United States.
Yes.
This is his decision to do this in this way, and he could change it with a swipe of his pen.
And I know that when we take over the House on January 3rd, I want to make sure one of the first things we do is have a hearing on this situation itself. The American public doesn't know how outrageous this is, that they set up this so-called emergency shelter in the middle of the desert so that they could imprison these 2,700 young people and violate the Flores Agreement. The American people need to know this, and we will do that through a hearing.
Good, great. And HHS is making it very difficult for us to come. They want 2 weeks notice. They aren't guaranteeing we can come even on that day. In fact, we were turned down for today a number of times. We just kept pressing and finally got it approved. There is a bill in this Senate which would guarantee a member of Congress can gain access for oversight within 1 day. And in the House, can you all include that in your hearing and try to get it inserted into your bill? Thank you. Thank you. Maybe one last question? Somebody who hasn't asked one yet?
I'm hoping that y'all are going back to Washington with a sense of terror that they are not letting anyone see these children. This is nefarious. When you hide children away like this, bad stuff happens.
We agree.
And
Well said.
No other reason.
Any closing comments from anyone? We want to thank you all again for publicizing this. It's so important the American people know that we now have a system of child prisons with 15,000 kids. They are unnecessary. It's part of a strategy, a political strategy. That means it's coming from a very dark and evil place. It's not America. Let's shut this place down. Thank you all very much.
Members of the press, if you're interested, I can take you to where you can actually see this place.
So, can you tell us what you're doing here? Why did?
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So, can you tell us what you're doing here? Why did you come here today?
Thank you. Thanks for doing
we're here to see really the details about what's going on with this child.
Is that what we're doing?
Okay.